In the Castle Firebrick wagon, which unfortunately hasn't made it into the arena today, but they can have a go tomorrow. Superb display of steam power, fantastic to see again. I'm going to go and have a cup of tea, and I shall hand you over, because we've now got commercial part 2 coming into the arena, and David, over to you.
Thank you, Anthony. There you go. Now you've had the baptism of fire, and you've now passed the test. It's now acknowledged by our senior person who oversaw today that you have passed your test and you are fully qualified to be Steam-Man commentator. So you're stopping. Yeah. Right. While my colleague takes a well-earned rest from doing the steamers, we now have what we call commercial vehicles at fleets of. Many from Shropshire, many local roundabout counties as well. Many will feature today. They are still operating vehicles, some sadly not. First into your arena today are the two commas owned by Swains of Stretton. Very old established company in Church Stretton. And you'll see both these are what we call livestock bodies, and of course mainly for carrying horses. Now, in 1914, Lynn Swain, the present incumbent, his grandfather started hauling timber with horses and then transported mineral varieties from local mines around the Gravels area to Minsterley railway station. On a return journey, he would have taken coal back to the mine. This work ceased when steam lorries became popular in the 30s. Horses and carts were hired out to Salop County Council from then. Then the transition from horses to lorries after World War II. 1946 agricultural haulage and line spreading. Livestock haulage, this was phased out in the 1950s and 60s. Long distance haulage took over, and of course European haulage, and at one time he would have over 50 lorries outfits a week over the water. That's 105, 106. The Atkinson 8-wheeler, 107, and AEC Mustang 108, belonging to A. Hingley Transport, Brierley Hill. All right. These two vehicles represent the company, A. Hingley Transport Limited, and they started in the 20s with a horse and cart. Very, very old, well-established company, and one of those in the Midlands that's still going today. Another one the same now, Andrew Davis from Acton Burnell with his Albion Reaver, and another Albion Reaver. The difference between the two, one's got the LED, the old type cab, and one's got the new type cab. Albert Davis Transport started in 1927 with a 4-cylinder Chevrolet. Later progressing to a 6-cylinder model, and then of course the rest is history. They were into buses and coaches. Then after the war, and ceased running buses and service buses in 1970, and now still continue in bulk feed haulage up to this present day, and are still operating, albeit from Dorrington. But those are two very resplendent of the company. They're still in the same colours as those today you've seen here, and they're still operating 10 or 15 vehicles as far as I know. That's two Albion Reavers, one with the LED cab, earlier than the other one obviously, and the Ergomatic is much later, 1970. The two Volvos in the lineup now from our local company and local steam enthusiast, Alistair Evans, in the colours of A. Evans and Son, the company which he owns in Bishop's Castle in the south of Shropshire. Oh, and by the way, Bishop's Castle was our old home for the show at one time, up until the 80s anyway. But and we have to move on from there, obviously, and we found ourselves at Onslow Park. These two Volvos will represent the fleet that Mr. Evans runs out of Bishop's Castle. On his timber side of the business, Ransford Timber Company, and then of course the actual company itself started in 1936. Alistair's granddad borrowed £50 to buy a second-hand Bedford van and in 1947 bought a Foden four-wheeler, the box van, which they still have and is restored to its present nice condition that you would expect the standard of Mr. Evans. Mr. Evans is two Volvos, one is the Volvo F88 290 and the N10 Volvo behind, the bonneted version, Turbo 6 we call it. So there you go. Another very old established company from Shropshire, Norman T. Lloyd as it was known when it started in 1937 with the petrol Dodge. Very humble beginnings there, became Lloyd's of Ludlow eventually, running up to 80 or 90 vehicles again, a good many of those on the continent at any one time in the 70s and 80s. They are still running lorries to this day in Ludlow, still operating, and still in Ludlow at the same place. So they did move down from the Fling Hill at one time, but that was gone 2 years ago. And just passing us now are the very resplendent Volvos of Evans at Bishop's Castle, and looking quite the part. See, some people would prefer the bonneted version, some would prefer what we call the cab over. The only downside of the Volvo is taken into consideration of the bonnet with the overall length of the vehicle, so you lose some body space. Today, representing Lloyd's, you have PNT 866G, which is a Mammoth Major 6 tractor unit, and behind that is the Mandator, the bog standard Mandator XNT 793M, as I say, typical of what we would call 1970s workhorse called the AEC Mandator. Quite a lot of them produced. Very good workhorse. And of course, the main interest of people in the six-wheeler would be used for heavy haulage and low loader work and that sort of thing. So that was quite a popular vehicle as well. Got a bit of a bottleneck. We're waiting for you to come in, and then we can start getting a few out. And then you have our actual rally organiser for the lorry section, the section secretary Lewis Weaver, with his two vehicles in the colours of C.A. Weaver, his father's initials, obviously. His father would have been 100 at this year's rally. He sadly passed away a couple of years ago, but he would have been 100 this weekend. It's always his birthday on the rally weekend, and we have to wish him happy birthday. A nice little Albion Chieftain, four-wheel tipper, very resplendent, typical of a working four-wheel truck with a tipper. Then of course the Volvo F88 tractor unit, very unusual one, it's what they call the day cab. Alright? And if you see on the back, it's in memory of Bert Weaver, the boss, right? He died in 2020. By the way, Bert started with a vehicle in 1952, a four-wheel GMC, paid 150 quid for it, and it was off A.E. Jones of Ludlow. 6 months later, he went on a contract with Adam Lithgow, line spreading. Now then, here we go. A nice little Seton and a Leyland Comet tipper belonging to Mr. Owen from Wrexham. Coedpoeth, Minura, Wrexham. Both four-wheelers. Ivor Owen been in business a few years. He started in 1954 with a few lorries, and the rest is history, obviously. Now then, W.J. Capper. W.J. Capper Transport in Wellington. new build quite well, sadly. First of all, Bill's Albion, his beloved Albion, his 1939 Albion, what we call little four-wheeler CBO 140, a 3.5 ton model. And then, of course, the giant Foden, 1959 model, S21 Foden 8-wheeler, obviously as well. Now we come to a very local person, only just down the road here, and then Mr. Elliot Blackmore with his Bedford KM track unit and ERM track unit as well. Now, he did start in 1966 with a petrol engine Austin, but he got to wait till his 17th birthday so that he could drive it. You have to buy it with the license to make a start in haulage, and as I say, the rest is history. And as you can see, quite a lot of Bedfords early on. He had a petrol engine Bedford, then he had diesel Bedfords, moving on to, in the latter days, Fodens, and then Scanias, and then eventually selling out to Veolia, because he was on the waste job. And there he is driving his own ERF there, his ER captain unit, which he had new himself. He's only since new, and he was saying he watched it being made, and it was displayed at Harrogate Tipper Show with a new tipping body and hauling a tanker and tipper trailers. Parked up in 2001, so there you go. Then we have the Connaught family from Leominster. In other words, M.A. Connaught and Son. Foden, a 1967 GUX 813E, previously owned by Woolies and Bucknell. Famous haulier down there, tar spray and tanker man. And the next one along is the road train. I hope it's clean now. 1987 model, a G-Reg 62 road train track unit with a Cummins engine. Very rare now, I've seen many about, but quite a well-selling vehicle. Two examples from John Norman, from down home Lacey, Hereford. First of all, the Seton, which is a 1969 model with a 180 Gardner engine. This vehicle was new to the Yorkshire Pond Company in Doncaster, pending its license for shunting. Of course, more modern than that is the Mercedes 1625, John Norman. Very, very popular in its day, the SK range of Mercedes. Very, very reliable, good old workhorse. So, now we have what we call a Spanish Dodge Barreras, WVJ 653T, Herefordshire registration, new to Trevor Price in Hereford, Telgar. It's known as Percy's Pride, that's the name of the person. And another Spanish Dodge from John Weaver and Sons, the 6-wheel rigid. That was new to Burgoyne's Lions Hall, and only used on marquee for about 8 months of the year. We'd not done a lot of mileage, and was restored in 2013. So, Mr. John Weaver himself ran quite a few Barreras Dodges and found them very reliable. Notably, the engine was made under license from AEC and improvements made by Barreras. So there you go. Another local company from Wen, Trevor Pye. Two examples. The Volvo, first one, the F7. Trevor Pye started in 1984 with a Volvo F7 and is still going today with 16 or 17 vehicles, I believe. That's the F7 just gone by. Now he's got an F12. Obviously the number plate, Trevor Pye A135, 32 ton tractor unit. Again, built up to today. We're getting behind again, AEC Mammoth Major, belonging to TJ Parry and Sons, Halfway House. 814 YUD, used to be owned by firm in Coates, Linton, Kent. Mainly reg they did out in Kent. It was owned and restored by them and bought by the Parrys in 2013. 786 BWX, an AEC Mammoth Major, owned by TJ Parry and Sons. It was new to Cherrington Hargreaves, then purchased by MJ Parry and Sons in Shrewsbury, 1971, and then bought from the sale and restored by Sandray up at Morton. Here we go, Paul's Transport, another local company from Shrewsbury. So, Volvo, 1979 SLD 566W. Paul started in 1992 with a Volvo F6 tipper. Come a long way since then, quite a few lorries, and doing local work, tipping, all sorts of things. Another one, David Ford, well known in Shropshire, Ford's Transport Limited. A DAF, a 1975 EJP, acquired from a farmer in Bedford, bought on a farm in France and imported, but in his own colours, making it look like that. Then of course, very, very apt for him, the Volvo F12, F12 DRF, obviously his initials, 4x2 tractor unit, and it was bought from Malcolm Harris in 1991, when it was 3 years old, driven by David Ford himself, and then, as an owner driver, a number of other drivers, but that was one of his original vehicles he ran. So we'll be looking at some tractors next, some real tractors, which I've got a man here who's an expert on Marshalls, Nuffields. Oh, I got tractors, Nuffields, Island.